Professor Yasin will speak in Russian, but I will translate for him. So it might take a little longer, but then Alla Salmina's part will be in English.
Я прошу прощения, но после того, как я много времени потратил на изучение английского языка, я понял, что я приступил к этому пути.
I'm sorry to say that I have realized too late that when I attempted to learn the English language, that I started this endeavor too late in my life course.
Сейчас, придя на эту конференцию, я почувствовал, что я довольно сильно постарел.
Now when I have come to this conference, I realize how much older I have become.
Но я очень доволен тем, как я увидел моего друга Рональда Инглхарта, и я лично получил большое удовольствие и от него, и от всей конференции, которая идет на, по-моему, очень интересно, на довольно высоком научном уровне. Я рад, что это происходит в нашей школе.
But I'm very happy to see here my friend Ronald Inglehart, and I was quite impressed with the way this conference is going. I think it is rather fruitful and high level, and I'm happy that such an event takes place at our university.
Мы с моей коллегой Аллой Салминой затеяли интересное исследование, как нам кажется, которое является международным, которое предполагает сравнение культур, сравнение ценностей и отношений населения Германии и России.
My colleague Alla Salmina and I attempted a comparative study that compares cultures of Germany and Russia and tries to make some predictions about the effect of these differences on values and attitudes.
Я только начну этот разговор с тем, чтобы объяснить причины нашего интереса к этой теме.
I will try to explain the rationale of our interest to this topic.
Германия в течение 40 лет была разделена на две части, в течение которых в Восточной Германии навязывались институты одной экономической системы, а в другой части развивались другие институты. Люди испытывали влияние. Эти влияния чувствуются, уже прошло много лет, но в Восточной Германии определенно есть соответствующие отклики.
In the course of 40 years, Germany was divided into two parts. And in Eastern Germany, another social, political, and economic system was imposed that had an impact on its people, and this impact, the differences therefore is of great interest to us.
Но заметим, что это были те институты, которые были и в Советском Союзе, в России в течение даже более длительного времени, и которые должны были олицетворять новое, более передовое общество.
But these were also the same institutions that were active in Russia even for a longer period of life, And the purpose of the establishment of those institutions was to bring the most advanced, as it was thought, system to Russia that was supposed to end up in a great success.
Ну, что касается Германии, то после воссоединения эти различия пусть не медленно, но потихоньку стираются.
In Germany, after its reunification, these differences have been gradually and slowly, but nevertheless, going away.
Что касается России, то здесь ситуация выглядит несколько иначе.
In Russia, the situation is different.
Мы прошли период реформ, трансформационный кризис.
We have passed the period of reforms and had a transformation crisis.
Потом мы прошли восстановительный период, успех которого определялся прежде всего ростом цен на нефть и газ, которыми Россия богата.
Then we had a period of recovery that was fed primarily by the growing prices on oil and gas, which Russia is rich of.
Сейчас наступил другой период. Цены на нефть и газ падают.
And now we have entered another period when oil and oil prices are declining.
Это вызвало кризис в России. И хотя Россия не единственная страна в мире, которая сегодня переживает кризис, это скорее глобальное явление, тем не менее кризисное явление в России, пожалуй, больше, чем в других странах.
And this led to a crisis in Russia. By no means Russia is the only country experiencing the crisis. It happens also in other parts, but perhaps it is more severe in Russia than in some other countries.
Я полагаю, что в значительной степени эта ситуация определяется тем, что русским присуще определенное тяготение к традиции. Не только советская традиция, ничего странного нет, поскольку она была совсем недавно, но также и к более старым, я бы сказал, крепостным традициям, которые продолжают по-своему жить и препятствуют модернизации российской экономики и общества.
I think this is related to the fact that Russians are prone to following tradition. And I'm speaking not only of the Soviet tradition that is more or less natural for us these days because it's only a recent historical experience, but I'm also talking about older tradition, the tradition of serfdom in particular, which continue to affect us and hinder the economic development.
Еще раз хочу подчеркнуть, что это явление культурное, это культура. И для меня культура и институциональная система – это примерно одно и то же.
I would like to emphasize that this is a cultural phenomenon, and for me culture is almost the same as the institutional system.
Кроме того, это в значительной степени явления, связанные с прогрессом или с его отсутствием. Тоже очень важный момент, потому что до сих пор, в течение нескольких тысячелетий, человечество переживает процесс прогресса. То есть повышение уровня материальной и всякой иной культуры. Хотя бывают срывы, бывают весьма неприятные явления.
My interest is also related to progress, or lack therefore. In the past few thousand years of human history, generally there has been a lot of progress. Although locally at some points there may be a reversal of the trend, but the overall trend, I think, is progress.
Наш доклад, наше выступление, оно в значительной степени рассчитывает сделать вклад в изучение этой проблемы, и в том числе с использованием тех материалов, которые приносят современные исследования, а также, если потребуется, и дополнение в виде наших собственных полевых исследований. Посмотрим, какая в этом будет нужда. А сейчас я хочу передать слово моей коллеге Алле Салминой. Она совсем молодая, но вы не думайте, она уже кандидат наук. Она недавно защитила кандидатскую диссертацию и способная девочка. Я ей желаю успеха.
Okay. The purpose of our presentation is to contribute to understanding of this problem, that is progress or lack thereof, and we will try to use the currently available data and methods of analysis. And now I'd like to pass the floor to Alla Salmina, who is a very young scholar, but she's already a candidate, that is a PhD in social science, and she's a very brilliant person.
Now the bar is high.
Thank you. Okay. I'd like to tell you about research methodology and some preliminary results of the work. I will try to keep it brief, to keep it short, so there is time for you to put questions to Professor Yasin. To begin with, I would like to say that our study is only just beginning, and today we are only going to present some of our preliminary results. First, let me say a few words about the key idea for the study. The project is integrated study of the cultural and institutional specifics of Russia, as well as for the purposes of comparison Eastern and Western Germany. It shall use a toolkit developed in the domains of institutional economics, sociology and social psychology. Theoretical research framework includes three main components, namely institutions, values and social attitudes, and economic and political behavior. As already said, our study is only just beginning, and in today's presentation, I would like to present some results to do with social attitudes towards the state in Russia and Germany. We believe that this set of questions is one of the most important in terms of helping us understand the impact of the Soviet past on the mindset and behavior of Russians. Although I'm going to touch upon the values of Russians and Germans, I will mostly focusing on the young social attitudes towards the state. Our study was conducted using the data from the European Social Survey, but we analyzed not only the data of Germany as a whole, but also separated them into Western and Eastern Germany. In this slide, we have an illustration of how Russian attitudes towards the Soviet state, towards the Soviet times, changed since 1990 to 2010-15. This data come from the poll of the Levada Center, and you can see that Russians are still nostalgic about their Soviet times, about the Soviet past, and in recent years, the percentage of Russians wishing for the USSR, for the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics to make a comeback has only increased. As you can see, the percentage of of the population that great the collapse of the USSR has gone down compared with 1990, but still very substantial, still very high. And in addition, in recent years, we have seen a significant decline in the number of people supporting democracy. And this data also comes from the poll of Nevada Center. And all these trends and all these trends and observations have prompted us to understand the degree to which Russian people today are influenced by their Soviet past and the ways in which this influence occurs. And comparing Russians to Germans is especially interesting in this context, not only because they are bound by the common socialist past, but because but this comparison is particularly useful for Russia because Eastern Germany represents the most successful and radical economic and institutional post-Soviet transformation. Although our researchers aim to study social attitudes of Russians and Germans, however, I would like to say a few words about their values. And in this slide you can see the findings of the World Value Survey for carried out in 1997. In this slide you can see that the spread both materialistic values in Western Germany was 2 times higher than in Eastern Germany. And as for Russia, here the differences are even more significant. You can see that in 1997, the spread of both materialistic values in Russia was 20 times lower than in Western Germany. And in order to analyze the situation in 2000s, we decided to switch to use the European Social Survey because in 2000s, the survey conducted by the World Value Survey did not contain separate samples for Western and Eastern Germany. Well, the European Social Survey has also its drawback, its shortcoming, namely it does not contain questions about the respondent's birthplace, but it contains a question about the place of conducting the poll. That's why we decided to use the European Social Survey and the variable for the place of conducting the poll, Western or Eastern Germany. We understand that this is quite a simplified assumption, but taking into account a high percentage of migration from Eastern Germany to Western Germany, and very low in the opposite direction from 1990 to the present day, we assume that this indicator is to a large extent reflects the respondent's place of birth and residence. And also it should be noted that we decided to use the European Social Survey for 2008 because it's the last wave of the European Social Survey, which contains a set of variables for the welfare attitudes or for the social attitudes towards the state. And in the next slide, you can see the findings of the European Social Survey for 2008. Presented here are values estimated using the Schwartz classification, which includes 10 groups of values, namely security, universalism, benevolence, self-direction, tradition, achievement, conformity, power, hedonism, and stimulation. I don't think we don't pretend that we can anything new to the analysis of values in Russia because we have got many great experts in this field in our university, but would only like to draw your attention to the similarities and differences between values in Eastern and Western Germany. And this slide shows the percentage of the population for which these values are most prevalent. It's the sum of response options 1 and 2 on a scale from 1 to 6, where 1 means that the value expressed to the greatest extent, while 6 means that the value is not at all characteristic of respondent. And you can see that according to the European Social Survey data for 2008, Russians tend to put more value on security, while West and East Germans put more value on benevolence and universalism. At the same time, there are significant differences in how much such values as security, conformity, and tradition are widespread manifested in Eastern and Western Germany. You can see that on these values, Eastern Germany are even closer to Russia than to Western Germany, than to West Germans. Well, we have looked at values, and now I'd like to move on to the next slide, to the social attitudes. And on this slide, you can see the social attitudes of Russians and Germans towards the state. Our calculations show that the percentage of Russians, that the perceptions of Russians and Germans of the social functions of the state are significantly different. Generally, Russians have high demands for the state, but not only the degree of demands, but also their hierarchy are different. Both Germans and Russians first of all expect that the state will ensure adequate health care policy. But for Germans, the second most important function of the state is to ensure sufficient child care services for working parents. As you can see on the slide, the generalized numbers with respect to Germany hide very strong differences between Eastern and Western Germany. And the population of Eastern Germany places great responsibility on the state for the implementation of most social functions, and on average it's 1.4 times higher than in Western Germany. And the most noticeable differences between West and East Germans are in the degree of responsibility of the state for providing jobs to all. And it's exactly this demand for this function that to a large extent reflects the peculiarities of the social labor market, when the state assumes responsibility for the employment of citizens. And we can assume that this high demand of West Germans is to a large extent due to the influence of socialist era past. However, this fact that preference is still in effect after 20 years following the transformation clearly calls attention to itself. And what conclusions can we draw from all this information? We can say that in terms of the degree of manifestation of socialist demands towards the state, East Germans are even closer to Russians than to East Germans, than to West Germans. And as you can see, there is a percentage of the population of Eastern Germany that considers the social functions to be a task of the state is lower than in Russia. And this difference is not very high. On average, the social demands of Russians are 1.1 times higher than of East Germans. And moving on to the next slide. While the social demands of Russians and East Germans are very much alike, the assessments of the effectiveness of the state social policy by Russians and East Germans are drastically different. And in this case, as a criterion of effectiveness, success of the implementation of social policy by the state, we used the assessments by Russians and Germans of the position of the respective socially vulnerable groups at whom this social policy is targeted, as well as the accessibility of respective social services. You can see that generally Russians, unlike East Germans, assess the effectiveness of the state social policy with respect to all the social functions has been successful. And it cannot be asserted that these Germans, like Russians, tend to assess the standing of the most socially vulnerable groups as bad. On the contrary, they assess the standing of of some groups even more positive than these Germans. For example, the standard of living of pensioners and opportunities for working parents to send their children to kindergartens. According to our previous studies, based on European social survey data, the high demand of Russians for the state to balance different social functions explained is to a large extent we explained by the dissatisfaction in the implementation of respective social function by the state. And the lower Russians evaluate the condition of the respective socially vulnerable group, the higher the demand for the state to strengthen social policy in that respective area. For this reason, it could have been asserted that the high demand for Germans for the state are also due to the social problems in the country. However, it appears that in Germany it corresponds to the objective reality to a less degree, and that's why we can assume that not only the objective factors behind the high social demands of the Germans but for the state, but also to a large extent the egalitarian social attitudes and the values which are typical for the social society, for the social society. Okay. To conclude, I would like to say that our research allows speaking of the persistent differences in the socialist attitudes towards the state, taking some values of population of Western and Eastern Germany. However, the socialist attitudes towards the state of the Germans are even closer to the attitudes of Russians to a greater extent rather than to those of the Germans. And our research allows us to assume that the socialist era still influences the values and social attitudes towards the state of Russia and Germany. But this conclusion requires further verification, and the main our problem is that there is not so many data from international social surveys that contains separate sample for Eastern and Western Germany and at the same time for Russia. That's why we hope to conduct our survey and poll in Germany and Russia using the same methodology, the same questionnaire. And in conclusion, I'd like to talk about some methodological issues we faced. Our study has raised some interesting questions to which we don't yet know the answer, but we hope to explore these issues further. And the slide presents the issues that seem to us especially interesting. The key issue we faced was that of methodology. Specifically, the question of how can we measure the impact of the socialist past on the attitudes of Russians and Germans. And in our study, we used the welfare attitudes indicators. However, it's clear that these indicators are not enough to make the conclusion that our society is still Soviet. And another question that had to be dealt with was whether we could separate the impact of the socialist past from the impact of the economic shock of the 1990s and the impact of the low household income for the vast majority of Russians that we still see today. And this question is one of the most serious ones that we have not really been able to answer yet. But one thing is clear is that we cannot really only limit ourselves to some quantitative service here, but qualitative sociological tools are also called here, for example, such as index interviews. And this slide presents our plan for research. In 2016, we plan to conduct an analysis of existing survey data. In 2017, we hope to conduct a poll. Our own survey in Russia and Germany uses the same methodology, the same questionnaire. Okay, and this is it for our presentation. Well, I think that maybe Professor Yasin also would like to say some concluding words.
Ну, давайте сначала вопрос.
Okay, so questions first. Okay, we have two discussants, Ronald and Bukhart and Chris Yancel, and we'll do it again in the same reverse order, so I'll start with first. And let's think.
Yeah, East Germansky, for which reason these results speak to me. So I'm German, and even on another ground, this reminds me of very remote times back years ago when I worked on my PhD, because this is what I was doing. So I was doing East-Western German comparison most of the time with survey data. I moved away from that field, but so it reinvigorates memories of doing this kind of stuff. For which reason I'm also not very surprised about the patterns that you find. I didn't follow up these things more recently, so I'm surprised that the differences are still there and very pronounced. A couple of comments maybe that might help you to develop this project further. By the way, Evgeny Yasin, your statement that most of the history over the past several millennia was characterized by progress. You do not have to be so speculative about it. There's a fantastic book, I know it will interest you, by Ian Morris, whose title is The Measure of Civilization, and he creates a social progress index for the world going back 10,000 BC, and you see overwhelmingly progress, so you can actually be stronger in that statement. Just an anecdote. There is one interesting thing you related to post-materialism. When I did my PhD, I discovered an interesting phenomenon. Not only is the difference between East and West there in terms of the level, also how many post-materialists we have, and actually pretty much both in West Germany and East Germany, the percentage of post-materialists were a regression on per capita GDP and level of education would predict it should be. So the fact that East Germany was in half was pretty much reflecting that East Germany was also in half in terms of per capita income at that time. But there is another thing, and I think that's a very clear ex-communist versus non-ex-communist countries pattern. The composition of the post-materialists is very different and distinctively so, and in a way that makes sense. If you only look at those that are pure post-materialists, and you look at the composition, looking at how many people are pure post-materialists because they say giving people more say in important government decisions, and how many people are pure post-materialists because they give first priority to protecting freedom of speech, the distributions are very different between East and West. In the West, there is a 60 to 40 percentage, or 60% among the pure post-materialists, 60% say freedom of speech, 40% say giving people more say as the first priority. In the East, the numbers are reverted. It's 80% who say giving people more say, and only 20% who take freedom of speech as the first priority. This is interesting because the two items, one is more collectivist, and that is giving people more say in important government decisions, and the other is more individualistic, freedom of speech. So it's not so surprising that in the West, the more individualistic item had stronger support, and in the East, the more collectivistic item had stronger support. And I found out that this is not only dividing East and West Germany, but pretty much in the same way East and Western Europe, where I found the same distinction in distribution among post-materialists. What would be interesting, just for out of curiosity, is when you would include the United States in your comparison. Then you had the two big powers, Russia and the United States, formerly the protective powers of the two Germanys, and East and West. And you might find that West Germany is closer to the United States and East Germany closer to Russia, of which some people might conclude we should go back to the division. I don't know about that, but anyways, it might be interesting. Two more areas that would be interesting to look at. You mentioned it briefly, and this is also a little bit based on my personal experience. When it comes to child rearing attitudes, there are pretty pronounced differences between Western and Eastern Germans, especially when it comes to how early should young children be mostly among their peers rather than being cocooned at home by the mother. So Easterners think kids should go into childcare facilities much earlier, being among peers most of the day, whereas Western Germans have much more traditional ideas about that. Another one that I remember is views of democracy. Among Eastern Germans, the idea that democracy is about taking direct votes on laws, so referenda, initiatives, is much more widespread than it is in Western Germany. So there's a kind of a plebiscitarian, stronger plebiscitarian understanding of democracy, and also representatives are more understood as really as delegates of the people rather than as trustees. So these might be additional areas if you develop this further. You might consult me when you develop the questionnaire if I have ideas on what you could do. Then you asked the question how to isolate the effect of the socialist past. I think in terms of having East and West Germany, it's pretty much a natural experiment. When you see that the economic conditions are starting to converge, but the attitudinal differences stay, I mean, the only conclusion then is that this is the effect of the socialist legacy. There is no other conclusion from that. This was very interesting. Thank you. Very insightful.
Thank you, Chris, for your thoughtful comments. And now, Ron.
I'd like to start with a personal comment. I'm glad to see my friend Evgeny Yasin here. Though I have started learning Russian at a rather advanced age, my current fluency is maybe a 4-year-old Russian. I'm not sure exactly how fluent a 4-year-old Russian is, but I might be able to go at that level. Nevertheless, in my 5 years since I began the association with the Higher School of Economics, I have started a new chapter in my life, made some very good friends here in Russia, and I'm proud to count Evgeny among them. So, nice to see you. Now, getting to the intellectual meat, I think your presentation goes to a very interesting theoretical concern, the persistence of certain attitudes. I would say that initially, most people expected that in 10 years or so, East Germany and West Germany would be converging. 20 years have gone by and they have not converged. This is not obvious. There's been huge exchange of people East Germany has been taken over by carpetbaggers from the West. And that's, of course, not really, I'm joking. But a huge number of people have moved east and west. Huge amounts of money have come from West Germany to East Germany. The capital has been moved to Berlin. We have the marvelous Angela Merkel as probably the most important politician in Europe, and other than Vladimir Putin, and she is an Aussie, and nevertheless, the West and East Germans have not converged, and you show that. This raises interesting questions. Why is it? Well, one of them is that certain basic norms are very enduring. It is not self-evident that these are such basic norms. And in fact, I suggest they're not universally basic norms. But for people who are raised in a socialist state, these issues that you focus on were instilled as basic norms. They have not just they're not just current political issues about this and that. They have a moral tone to them and a sort of basic value. And I think that this is something that you could incorporate into your broad project. Incidentally, I have a forthcoming article that I would be happy to share with you called Cultural Change, Slow and Fast, which discusses why it is that cultural change usually goes at a very slow pace, as your findings show. Sometimes it goes fast, but this is a special condition. So if you give me your email address, I'll send you that. But more broadly, I think in your next stage, maybe, you could get some insight by adding to stage one an analysis not just of the secondary data you show here, but the World Values Survey data, which has a battery of questions concerning income equality, the state response, government responsibility that all people should take care of themselves, income equality should be greater, or we need greater inequality for individual incentives, and the role of state regulation. These have been asked over a period of time from 1990 to the latest wave. And of course, we can break down the German samples into East and West. We always can. The latest wave of German samples has a variable that enables you to break down East and West Germany separately. I think this would be revealing, because this would enable you to put Russia and Germany in a global perspective, which would be revealing about why it is that Russia is outstanding. I suspect you will find that Russia is at the high end of the continuum globally, not just compared to West Germany, but the world. Because, of course, the World Values Survey enables you to look at 100 countries. And I think that it will probably reveal, Russia is an outlier. They emphasize these goals very high. Interesting question, why? One possibility could be the long endurance of the socialist heritage and the socialist institutions. The USSR, of course, had 70 years. Germany only 40 years, East Germany only 40 years under this, so that it conceived, I think, quite plausibly. They got more deeply instilled, but I think with data from many countries, you can analyze national level variables impact on why these attitudes are distinctive, because I believe Russia will be at the high end of the spectrum in emphasis on this. And I think this will give you a kind of perspective that is useful in interpreting your data, which of course already are very interesting. The comparison of Russia, East Germany, West Germany is nicely, tightly focused. What you find is quite convincing, and I think it reveals the lasting impact of the socialist heritage, or whatever you want to call it. Other points that are interesting is one of the things that we find when we look at the data over time is, in our first survey in 1990, most of the world thought that, because this is just the collapse of communism, most of the world, including Russia, had a relatively strong tendency to emphasize on this question about income equality that we need more incentives or inequality as incentives for individual effort. This has been a massive shift in the decades since then. Most of the world, including Russia, has moved, and including even the US, has moved toward greater emphasis on income inequality, reflecting the reality of massive increase of income inequality, which has troubling implications. So this is a friendly suggestion that you have a big program, you've got a lot of work already planned out. I think this might be an interesting addition to stage one of your analysis of it. Very interesting analysis, and congratulations.
Thank you, Ron. We are a little behind the schedule, and we are supposed to be at this time at the presentation, but maybe nevertheless we can have a short round of questions. But first, would you like to respond to the reviewers, or would you like to collect more questions now?
Я хочу поблагодарить моего друга Инву Харса и господина Вечера, я его не узнал.
I would like to thank my friend Roman Bendokhart and Dr. Veltzel, who I did not recognize this time.
Ну, я могу отвечать на вопросы очень долго, но у меня есть надежда, что теперь мои силы удвоились, омолодились, и теперь, значит, мы сможем продолжать отвечать еще на много вопросов, на которых у нас нет сегодня ответа. И самый сложный вопрос — это такой, какой путь предстоит России. То ли она пойдет по своему традиционному пути, который каждый раз у нее получался. Это, скажем, история империи до Александра II. Это также большевистская история, 74 года, и в определенной степени мы наблюдаем процессы некоторого повторения. Значит, с другой стороны, есть определенные процессы другого свойства, и это те же реформы Александра II, а потом изменения, которые происходили в конце царствования Николая II под влиянием революционных событий. И в 90-х годах, 80-х, 90-х годах, значит, очень сложные процессы. Я не рассчитываю дожить до того, чтобы увидеть конец, во всяком случае, такой, который меня бы устроил. Но тем не менее, у меня есть еще одна жилка, это желание понять, что происходит. Мне интересно.
I could have been answering many questions that were raised for a very long time, but I would like to go straight to the question that I'm concerned with most, and this is whether Russia will go its traditional way, that is the way of the empire before Alexander II, or the way of the communist Russia, or whether, because there were some counter trends in the Russian history, it will take the route of development marked by such periods of Russian history as the reforms of Alexander II, or the late period of the rule of Nicholas II, where there were democratic changes under the influence of the revolutionary events, or maybe the late 80s and early 90s, so that is under Gorbachev and Yeltsin. I don't hope to live long enough to have a definite answer to this question, but I retain curiosity about the course of these events, and I would like to know.
Хороший был совет про Соединенные Штаты Америки, господина Ельцина, относительно того, что там есть очень интересные сопоставления, перерывы, то есть сопоставления и сравнения. Я должен сказать, что вот я не рассчитываю на большое время, но это думаю, что те события, которые происходили в Германии и в России с отставанием от передовых капиталистических стран, а тогда передовые были Великобритания, Франция и Соединенные Штаты Америки, хотя с океана. Значит, они происходили с опережением тех событий, которые происходили в Германии до поры до времени и тем более в России.
There was a very, the advice from Dr. Wetzel was quite good to include the United States in our study, and indeed the processes that started in the US of course predated the developments in Germany, and that would be a nice change to the research design.
Ну, значит, я думаю, что сам по себе мотив отставания от других стран создает определенное преимущество до некоторой степени. Но во всяком случае Германия это совершенно очевидно.
I think realization that the country lags behind the most progressive countries sometimes can be positive, and I think it is obvious in the case of Germany.
Не сомневаюсь, что мы что-то используем из опыта Соединенных Штатов. Но просто это будет занимать меньше времени. Кроме того, я хочу сказать, что мы ищем партнеров. Если, значит, есть желающие, то мы готовы обсудить этот вопрос. Спасибо.
We will definitely include the US, but of course the focus of our study will still be on Germany and Russia. And by the way, we are also looking for partners, so if there is anyone who is interested in joining this project, we will be interested in discussing this. So this is all. Thank you very much. Okay, we have a very short time for... No?
We can only collect the questions.
We can only collect the questions, as Tatiana suggests. So I think there were a couple of people who wanted to comment or raise questions. So, Jan,
I would like to offer two brief comments. The first one concerns the analysis of those 4 items that has been presented. I have an alternative proposal, not to look at low-level comparisons between these 3 countries, and to consider the 4 items as ordinal variables, perhaps after some collapse of the categories, and then calculate partial Goodman cross correlation association coefficients so that one can look at the network of 4 variables and 6 partial coefficients, some of which may be 0, subject to hypothesis testing, and one compares the network separately for East Germany, West Germany, and Russia. This would be a holistic analysis, and the technical issues has been resolved elsewhere, and this could be tackled without much problem. The second brief comment concerns different ideologic setup behind the reforms in federal Russia after 1991 and in Germany after the war. Well, I would like to mention significant difference for me in the form of the particular way of thinking about the role of the state that has been provided in Germany by the so-called ordoliberalists, who have focused on the role of the state as regulatory power to ensure that there is a competition in economy. This was not the case in Russia. The focus was not on competition, the focus was not on demonopolization, whereas this was the explicit focus of the Erhard's social market economy. So perhaps it would be of interest to look at these differences.
Thank you.